Have you ever worked in an Excel spreadsheet and finished it up and been really happy with the results, and then the next day open it up and just kind of look at it again, and you realize that some of your formulas are not giving you answers that you think you should be getting? Well, there is a way to double check to make sure that you've included the cell references that you should include. Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library, and today we are going to look at some of the troubleshooting tools that Excel provides. As we look at our example today, we can see that this is payroll for a really small company. It only has about 4 employees, and so here are their names in column A. And then in column B, they have an hourly rate, and it looks like some of these employees may have been with us for quite a while. And then how many hours per week. So basically, they either work half-time or full-time. And then they are on a bi-weekly pay scale. Instead of having 24 pays in a year, they will have 26. And it's just a really nice way to pay employees to split it out every other week rather than twice a month. So to look at that formula, when I click in D2, it shows that we are taking their hourly rate in B2 and we're multiplying by the hours per week and then times 2. So we're paying for 2 weeks at a time. And of course, this is just their gross salary. There's nothing taken out. In row 6, we have totals. So we've already added in a formula to add up how much those biweekly pay amounts are. And then we've copied that formula over to E6 because we're looking at adding in information in a new column in E. And what that new information is proposed new pay. So let me click in E2 here for a second, because what we want to do is increase everybody's salary by this 5% that we see in column G, in G2 to be specific. So how would we write that formula? Well, let's see, we would say equals, and then we would start with their pay that they get now, which is in this case D2. And then I want to add to D2 what that salary increase would be. So let's say I want to put in add, and then that salary increase is the pay they get now times what the salary increase is in G2. And then I'll go ahead and end the parentheses there. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to the left of the formula bar to the check mark to enter this into the cell. And so right away, I can see that this person who was making $2,000 in a paycheck is now going to get $2,100. Well, that was easy. Let's go to the fill handle and then copy that down to the rest of the employees. Except when I look at this total, for example, it's only gone up $100 from D6 to E6. Something is wrong, and that is where we're going to bring in our troubleshooting tools to help us figure out what the problem is. Starting in E2, where I'm fairly certain I have a correct formula, and it seems to be the only one that's right, well, let's go up above the ribbon to the 4th choice here, which is formulas, and we'll click on it. And then as I go to the right, I can find the formula auditing group. And the very first button in the upper left is trace precedence. Now what that means is, what are the cell references, the cell contents that are feeding into this formula? So let's click on that. And you can see that it says, well, that cell with 5% is feeding into this formula, as is the biweekly pay amount that is also in that formula. Well, let's do a check then. Let's come down to E4, where we know we have an incorrect formula. And again, go to Trace Precedence, click on it, and it becomes very obvious very quickly that what has happened is that while it is perfectly okay for me to adjust the cell references when I'm referring to column D, I didn't really want to let the cell references adjust when I'm referring to that value in G2. In fact, I want to make G2 an absolute reference. Well, let's look at that then. But before I do that correction, let's go ahead and go back over to Formula Editing, and the third button on the left is Remove Arrows. Now, if I just click on that button, it removes all sorts of arrows, but I can also click the drop down just to the right of that button, and I can say, well, I want to remove precedent arrows only, so I'll just click on that. And because I had E4 selected, that is what is erased or removed. Well, let's go up to E2, where we have our formula that works, and let's also remove those precedent arrows. Because what we want to do is fix that initial formula so that it's correct. And then we'll copy it down and see if that doesn't make a difference. So now that I'm in E2 and I know that I want to make G2 an absolute reference, I'm just going to go up to the formula bar and click in front of the G, and I'm going to press F4 on the keyboard. And it adds in a $ in front of the G, which means no matter how you copy this formula, don't change the reference to column G. And it also adds in a $ in front of the 2. And again, these are not formatting $signs. These are formula $signs. So this $ in front of the 2 says no matter how you copy this formula, keep the reference to row 2. Now that we've put in the absolute reference here, I'm going to again go to the check mark to the left of the formula bar, and it should set that into stone. Now let me use my fill handle, copy and drag down. Oh, well, they've all adjusted, haven't they? So to test my theory, I can go back to Trace Precedence. Look at that. Column D is feeding into column E, just kind of straight across, but it's referring to G2 in that part of the formula. Let's come down and look at another one here. Trace Precedence. Yes. So because I've added in that absolute reference, my formulas are now working correctly. And let's see if Remove Arrows won't remove everything at once. Yes, it did. You may decide that just clicking Remove Arrows may be the best choice for you. As I look at the formula auditing group, I see that besides being able to trace precedence, we can also trace dependence. So let's look at that. Let's go to B5, and then let's go to Trace Dependence, the second button here, and click on it. Oh, and it says that this hourly rate is part of the formula that feeds into biweekly pay, which is true. Well, let's click in D5, and then let's see if the formula that is in D5 indeed feeds into or contributes to another formula in this spreadsheet. So let's go to Trace Dependence. And we get two arrows, one saying that this biweekly pay goes into the part of the calculation for proposed new pay, but it also feeds into the amount for the total. So again, this helps me figure out if I click in this cell, where is it referenced? How does it contribute to the formulas that I am using? And in fact, this is correct. Well, again, I can go to formula auditing and either, as I click the drop down, remove dependent arrows one at a time, or I can just remove the arrows. When you work with a really large spreadsheet, and of course we don't have one, but when you have a really large spreadsheet, and if it is not laid out in a very kind of strict way, then it is sometimes very difficult to look at it and kind of figure out where the formulas might even be so that you could check the dependents and the precedents. So how can you find the formulas that are in a worksheet? If we go to the formula auditing group, kind of a new button is the one at the top right that says Show Formulas. And when we click Show Formulas, we now can see those formulas much easier. And to get back to our spreadsheet, we just simply go up to Show Formulas, click on it, and turn it off. I have made a slight change to the formula in D6. But unfortunately, when I look at the answer to that formula now, 0, that could not be correct. And so I could look at the precedents and see if that would give me an answer. Or I can come up to formula auditing and go to the second button here, error checking, and click that drop down. A really big clue is that when I come down to the bottom where it says circular references, it is active. Usually, if you have a correct formula, circular references will be grayed out. And it even tells me that I have a circular reference here in D6. Now, a circular reference means that in the cell where I have the formula itself is referring to that cell. So in D6, where I made that slight change to my formula, when I go up to the formula bar, it says, well, you're referring to D6. So let's go just to the right of that D6 and change it to a D5 and press enter. And now I have a correct formula. And notice that when I go back to formula auditing and error checking, circular reference is now grayed out. I have a good answer instead of 0, and my spreadsheet is a whole lot happier. I have now clicked in E3, which is one of the cells that has the formula for the proposed new pay. And let's say I'm a little bit nervous about that formula and I want to make sure that it's accurate. One of the things that I can do is come back to formula auditing, and the very last button here on the right is evaluate the formula. So let's click on that button, and it brings up a window that sort of repeats the formula that we know is there in the cell. Matter of fact, I can look at the formula bar here to the left, and yes, they match exactly. And it says, okay, well, let's evaluate what you have. So where it says D3, we're going to come down and click on evaluate, and it has substituted D3 with the actual cell contents. So as I look at D3, just to double check, it's 800, and my evaluation also says 800. Then it goes to the next piece, which is the next cell reference, which is also D3. Well, we'll click on evaluate, and it's also 800. Well, we also then want to evaluate G2 and make sure that we've clicked correctly or typed in that cell reference correctly too. So let's evaluate. and it's showing 0.05. Well, 0.05 is 5%. It's the decimal equivalent of 5%. So that is precisely what we wanted to put in as well. Well, let's evaluate again. So this time when I click evaluate, it's taken what was in parentheses, the D3 times G2, and actually done the math there. And so D3 times G2 is 40. Then we'll come down, click evaluate again, and it's saying, well, we're going to take off the parentheses. So now it's 800 plus 40, evaluate again, and it gives us the total of 840 when it adds the 800 and the 40 together. Now we can restart that evaluation if we think we've missed something in the process, or we can simply click close. But I feel pretty confident that that is a good formula by stepping through all of the comparisons of the cell name to the cell contents and how the formula was created. So when you have a spreadsheet, it actually doesn't hurt to come to formula auditing at any time, even if you're confident about your formulas. But certainly, if you feel like some of your numbers are a little bit off, they're not what you expected, come to this formula auditing group. And hopefully, one of the tools here will help you either verify that what you've done is correct, or it will help you, in fact, correct what you haven't quite written correctly. Either way, formula auditing is a fantastic group to remember when you work with your spreadsheets. To learn even more, be sure to go to mymcpl.org/online learning for such great resources as Universal Class, Learning Express Library, LinkedIn Learning, and Udemy Business. We also premiere videos every Wednesday and Friday at 1 o'clock. If you miss a video premiere, you'll still be able to find it later when it's convenient for you. You can find us on Facebook at MCPL 360, and you can find us on YouTube by going to our MCPL MO channel.